Death may be a morbid topic of discussion, but it is an eventual certainty for each and every person. You may not know exactly when or how death will come, but that's all the more reason why it's essential to get your affairs in order, no matter how old you are. Abby Schneiderman sees the consequences of not planning ahead firsthand. She works in the field of life and estate planning and is all too familiar with the mess that's created when a person dies and there are no set directives in place. Schneiderman is the co-CEO of Ever Plans and the co-author of the book In Case You Get Hit by a Bus: How to Organize Your Life Now for When You're Not Around Later.
We hear stories all the time from people who were left to deal with the fact that their spouse had made no plan, or they had made plans, they had a life insurance policy, but had never told their spouse about it, that they didn't do a will. And, now the family is left searching and searching and searching for one just to find out that there was never one in the first place. When you don't plan, you leave a lot to chance. You leave a huge amount of stress and anxiety and decision-making for the people who are left behind, and potentially a lot of fighting. And it creates just an unnecessary burden that doesn't need to be there.
It's estimated that in the U.S., around 60% of people do not have a will in place, according to the American Association of Retired Persons, or AARP. This lack of direction can create a months- or years-long mess for family members to sift through, sometimes leading to bitter court battles and permanent rifts.
It really is important to sit down way ahead of time, think through all of the different aspects of your life that would need to get communicated to somebody else in the event of an emergency. What are your wishes? What are your healthcare wishes? If something happens to you, who should be making decisions on your behalf? What kinds of decisions do you need made? Make sure that people know those decisions ahead of time, and all sorts of other decisions that we help you think through in this book, so that in the event of an emergency, your family is not left thinking what you might have wanted. They know what you would have wanted.
It's never too early to put a medical directive and will in place. Schneiderman notes that if this past year has taught people anything, it's that life is full of the unexpected and can take a sudden turn at any moment.
The whole world was sort of hit by a bus in the form of a pandemic. And everybody, knows now that we just don't know what's going to happen next. And it's really, really important that you plan ahead so that in the event that something does happen, in the event that your family needs access to critical information, even practical information, that they have access to it.
A will is a legal document that lays out the individual or people your assets will be distributed to after your death. This can include any property, cars, mementos, and more. It's also critical to have your medical wishes made clear ahead of time in the event that you're incapacitated and can't communicate. Should you be resuscitated? Do you want to be on life support for an extended time? These are important questions that are difficult to think about, but necessary. In addition, it's helpful to create an easy-to-access list of the people that should be contacted in the event of an emergency.
We get you thinking about things like, who are the important people in your life? Are there any specific people that would need to be contacted in the event of an emergency? Healthcare providers, people at your office, neighbors, friends. Who are those people in your life? And just make sure there's a list of that somewhere.
Beyond the traditional preparation of a will or medical directive, it's important to also think about your digital footprint. Who would be in charge of getting into your social media accounts? Should they be deleted within a certain time frame?
If you're somebody who has an account, whether it's hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of followers or tens of followers, just make sure your family or somebody in your life knows what you would want to have done with that account in the event that something happens to you. The average person today has over 130 online accounts. That includes everything, all their different online accounts. And it's supposed to go up to 200, I believe, this year. And so if you think about that, yes, social media accounts, you have to just think about all the different types of accounts that you have. And each one of those, by the way, requires either an email, a username or password. And first of all, make sure that your keeping track of those accounts somewhere safe, we highly recommend using a password manager. Our favorites are companies like Dashlane or LastPass. I use both of those personally. But when we say digital assets, we're talking about everything, including hardware and software. And this includes your phone, computer, or tablet, as well as everything else online or in the cloud.
It can be overwhelming to go through the many accounts and passwords we amass online, but it's better to spend the time now so that your loved ones have all of the info they need and a clear set of instructions in front of them to carry out your final wishes. Does your partner or a close family member have the passcode to your phone? Or the login for your email and bank accounts?
We're trying to get people thinking about what are the practical things that are in your own head or that you're the one who deals with in your household, that if, God forbid, something were to happen to you, that your family would be, in a bind without knowing. And so we get you thinking about things like passwords. What are the important passwords to services in your life that somebody needs to know about? Do you have a phone that has an unlock code? What's the unlock code to the phone? What's the unlock code to the computer? Just little things like that can have huge impact. Next is, what are your top financial accounts? Do you have a primary checking account, a primary savings account that just somebody needs to know that you have?
Lastly, Schneiderman says to also think about how you would like to be remembered. This can include your final wishes, like the funeral, as well as the little things that you would like to leave behind for loved ones, such as personal tokens or the small joys you yourself enjoyed in life.
We help you think through things like how to personalize your plan, how to think about things like recipes that you want to make sure get passed down from generation to generation, or songs that are important to you, or videos or photos that you want to make sure your family has access to.
People spend a lifetime building assets, interests, and a life online. As important as building it is managing it. Get your affairs in order so there's no question as to what you may have wanted. To learn more about this topic and our guest, Abby Schneiderman, head to viewpointsradio.org. You can also find links and resources on how to prepare a will or medical directive on our site. Also, check out Schneiderman's book, In Case You Get Hit by a Bus, How to Organize Your Life Now for When You're Not Around Later, online and in bookstores. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. Studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.
Viewpoints returns in just a moment.
Saving for taxes is hard for many business owners, perhaps especially independent contractors, artists, and entrepreneurs. Some business owners simply can't stop themselves from spending all the money as it comes in, then incurring more and more unsecured debt to pay their taxes and other obligations. Those businesses are sinking, even if they don't know it yet. But Help for Debtors is available now. Business Debtors Anonymous is a 12-step recovery program with meetings every day where members support one another as they stop incurring new unsecured debt. At meetings, recovering members share how their lives have been transformed. Their stories will be reassuringly similar to your own. This 12-step program offers hope, clarity, and serenity, along with immediately usable tools to support better management of your personal and business finances. Find more information and request free program literature at helpfordebtors.org. That's helpfordebtors.org.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Viewpoints is a production of MediaTrax Communications. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.
Coming up next week on Radio Health Journal.
If you earn $38,000 a year or more, you're actually in the top 10% globally of income. And we know from research that this is the group that causes about half of household climate pollution.
The role each American plays in slowing global warming. Then
they create these fictional trusts, they create tax loopholes, and in a sense they help them protect and preserve their money and create dynasties of wealth for future generations.
The business of growing wealth for the ultra-rich. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.